Chapter 31. Turning Point. The drapes were cruelly opened, letting the morning light stream onto Valerius's bed. He growled and burrowed under his pillows to escape the brightness. The metal hangers on the curtains made a tinkling sound as they were moved. He felt, as much as saw, more light creeping under his pillows and blankets.
"Whoever is doing this must have a death wish,"
Valerius growled, and then he smelled Shione's light perfume and groaned. She would only be here, waking him like this, for a very good reason.
"I stalled him as long as I could."
Her musical voice rang out. There was a clink as a tray with food and drink was set on the foot of his bed. He chanced lifting the pillow to get a sniff. Bacon, eggs, toast, juice, and strong coffee. His stomach growled now even as he covered his face again.
"Who is he?"
Valerius asked. His heart gave a betraying lurch as he hoped it might be Caden.
"Why am I thinking of that kiss like it was the first one of my life?"
Raziel had no answers, as the black dragon's spirit was deeply asleep, as he should have been. But if Caden was here then...
"Marban,"
she said. Valerius's heart fell into his feet and he tensed.
"Not Caden. Of course it's not him. He's likely still sleeping. Too few hours have separated the last time we saw one another for a young shifter to be awake."
Valerius lifted his head up, the pillows falling to each side as if his head was magma leaving a volcano and destroying the mountain at the same time.
"Why the hell is Marban here? And why would you wake me up for his insufferable presence, Shione? He's hardly alive for death matter."
But then he stopped. He suddenly knew exactly why Marban was there, and it was a life or death matter. It was for the families of those he had killed in the below. He had forgotten about everything with Caden and humans first, but now the memory was front and center.
"Turn over and have some food. You'll need your strength to deal with him. He is in fine form this morning and bound to test your patience,"
Shione said evenly. Her neutral tone told him all he needed to know. Even her temper had been strained by the old swarm shifter. Valerius sat up, and Shione plumped pillows behind his back before putting the silver tray on his lap. He frowned.
"Why are you serving me like this? You never do this," he said.
"Oh, I have in the past. Your memory is normally not so faulty."
She disagreed as she took off the napkin's silver holder and spread the pure white cloth over his chest.
"No. Wait. Yes."
He looked up at her.
"You did this during your quest to make me lead the shifters. That was the last time you waited upon me."
She was taking the silver covers off his food. He caught her wrist.
"What's going on here, Shione?"
She wriggled her fingers, and he released her. The covers were now off the steaming plate of fluffy eggs, crisp bacon, and buttered toast. She actually handed him his fork.
"Shione,"
he said warningly. She sat down on the edge of the bed with a sigh and moved her dark hair away from her face.
"You're going to have to get more involved in the world again. You can't stand back any longer and let everyone work it out."
"With what aspect do I need to be more involved in?"
He was full out scowling at her now, with his voice full of suspicion.
"Everything,"
she said with a faint laugh. Her right hand went to her temple as if she had a headache, and Shione never had a headache. He shoveled up a forkful of eggs, and in between bites asked,
"What's wrong in particular? You're never gloom and doom about things. Until today."
"Oh, besides the fact we have a 9th dragon shifter, or that he's a child, or that there are people who are bombing the populace, or that Humans First is calling for your head, or that Marban is also calling for your head, or that the President of the United States is stalking the halls outside your bedroom suite, or that every dragon shifter is within a few days of the edges of your territory, and you haven't told me your plan to deal with them?"
She rattled off.
"You love that kind of stuff. I am the one that hates it,"
he pointed out as he chewed toast. She nodded.
"True. Usually."
She turned around to face him. one leg drawn up underneath her body.
I'm worried about Caden.
He had just taken a mouthful of bacon when she said that, and his mind immediately flashed to the kiss they had shared the night before. He nearly choked. She thumped his back, and he took in deep breaths.
What about him? He's fine last I saw,
Valerius said. He'd let Caden think that he had headed into the myriad of secret passages in reach the moment he'd left the car, but in fact, he had doubled back and followed Caden home. He'd needed to make sure the young man was safe in his house, tucked in bed. He'd even climbed the tree outside of Caden's window to watch him fall asleep. He'd almost been caught by an old nosy neighbor, but he'd escaped without being seen.
He's still so young, not just in life, but as a shifter. Yet he's not going to get a chance to grow at a normal pace, is he?
She looked so miserable that he wanted to tell her that she was wrong, but her thoughts echoed his.
All the dragons have had time to learn to become what they are. Most of them were leaders before they bonded with their spirits, but Caden
is going to be fine.
He reached over and touched her arm.
We will give him as much time to grow and learn as he needs.
The surprise in her topaz eyes, not just because of his rare touch, but the kindness of his words had him quickly releasing her and going back to his breakfast. She might see the kiss and its absurd effect on him.
So, you took him flying last night?
She asked. He felt her trying to zero in on the reason for his change in sentiments towards the white dragon shifter. He nodded, stuffing his mouth full of food so that he wouldn't say something or put a tone in simple words that would give him away.
Give what away?
But of course he knew. Raziel was still curled up asleep, but he didn't need the spirit's wry look to realize he knew the answer to that question. He wished he could be so blissfully asleep, like his spirit was. Black smoke happily puffed out of the black dragon's nostrils. Raziel was exhausted after the night they'd had. No leisurely flying about, but racing, hiding, dive-bombing, jumping, leaping, all of it, everything. They'd had fun. So much fun. Fun like they'd never had before.
And how did it go?
She prompted. He shrugged as he devoured a whole slice of bacon in one go.
Fine.
That was accurate if fine meant marvelous. Her topaz eyes narrowed.
Valerius, my king, what are you keeping from me?
So many, many things. But only one thing that you'd really care about.
He looked up at her, all innocence.
I'm not sure what you mean, Shoni. I'm telling you that Caden and I had a fine time last evening.
She studied him skeptically for a long while, but soon she was looking worried again, not about what he was hiding, but likely about Caden. Though if she had known what he was hiding, she might not necessarily feel less worried. Caden and him in a romantic relationship? That wouldn't add a layer of complexity or anything like that. And it would have to be a relationship, because he highly doubted Caden did casual. He actually did not do casual. But how many centuries, millennia, really, separated them in age and experience? So many. Caden was a boy. No, that was not fair. Caden was a man, but a young man. All this mate business, if he truly believed it, was too much to put on such young shoulders.
Feelings change between people as time goes on. For Caden, his personality and experience will seem to be changing in hyperdrive for all that he will be learning. The first few centuries are all about change.
It would be hard enough to keep Caden's identity safe if Marban didn't know it. But he does, and he wants something for it.
Shioni finally said what was eating at her.
And he'll keep asking for things in exchange for that silence. Eventually, he'll go to the well once too often with us. But if we do not give him what he wants, then he'll go to another of the dragon shifters, perhaps even Valerian.
At that, Valerius let out a huff of dark laughter.
If he goes to Ilarion, he will be a smeared bug on the green dragon's windshield. Ilarion has little use for other shifters. None for humans, and even less for swarm shifters. And any promises the other dragon shifters make to Marban won't be honored once they know who Caden is. Despite your words to Caden, dragons are not an honorable lot. They'll be crossing their fingers and toes as they promise him the world. And then, when the time comes to pay up, then they'll crush him. Marban's best bet to get anything at all out of this is our desire to keep him silent. So, he will take far less than what he asks for.
You've been thinking about this.
She blinked, clearly surprised. He shook his head.
No, I've firmly not been thinking about Marban. Long-term strategy is not my strong point. Smashing things is. But I know the dragon shifters, and I know Marban. These are not unpredictable people.
I suppose they aren't. It's just that titanic forces are at play, with Caden right in the center of it all that makes me uneasy.
She admitted.
Yes, that's true. The stakes are personal.
He ate the last of his breakfast and picked up the serving platter.
Very. The moment I saw Caden, I felt connected to him, and I do not do that normally.
She crossed her arms over her chest. He looked at her speculatively.
He's gotten to you.
There's something about him,
she admitted.
I don't even know what it is.
You would have been enthralled with him and Iolaire last night,
he said with a soft laugh.
Playful and exuberant with everything new and exciting and fresh. No jadedness, only a desire to interact with the world on open terms.
It was her turn to look at him with surprise.
He's gotten to you, too. Both of them have. So you're going to let them stay?
Yes. Handing them over to someone else would be a mistake for my rule, of course,
he said briskly as he stood up and put the tray on the desk. He grabbed a pair of pants off the back of the chair and pulled them on. Nudity around another shifter was completely normal, so he did not try to hide himself from her gaze. And she did not care about his bare ass anyways.
And that's why you're letting them stay? Because of the good of your rule?
She pressed.
One of the reasons,
he said as he zipped his pants, studiously not looking at her. She'd see evidence of the kiss. He wouldn't be able to hide it from her at all.
And not because he makes you less grumpy.
The laughter in her voice had him forgetting the risk of her seeing the kiss and turning around to give her a narrow-eyed look. Grumpy. I am not Grumpy Dragon, he told her firmly.
Oh, yes, you are. I bet Wally has some version of Grumpy Dragon on his store shelves. Or if he doesn't, I'm going to give him the idea.
She laughed fully then.
No, you will not. The plushies and the balloon dragon hats are more than enough. It is disrespectful.
He glared at her. She laughed harder.
So you didn't see the dragon hoodies where the dragon's maw is the hood? They're so cute. I'm getting one delivered.
He had not seen the hoodies. Now he was tempted to go through all of Wally's inventory and remove all signs of dragons. But he doubted either Caden, Wally, or Shione would let him. Landry and Rose might even stand in his way.
Do not wear it around me. That is all it seems I can ask,
he muttered. But the memory of flying with Caden and the damned kiss did not let his mood darken. Not even the thought of Marban waiting for him did. Instead, his mind offered him the exciting fact that Caden must shift every day, and they would be flying and playing together every day, every single day. Her head tilted to the side.
You seem different, in a better mood. Dare I say it, happy?
He grunted, which could have meant yes or no. The smile that wanted to creep across his face was harder to hide. He said almost lightly,
I'm sure my good mood won't survive Marban, so might as well get it over with. Is he in the throne room?
She shook her head, which had him staring at her hard.
Where is he, then?
He said if he had to meet with you in the throne room, that he would be accompanied by the victims' families. If he met with you in your private quarters, he would come alone.
She answered.
I picked the latter, as putting the families through his dog and pony show would have been cruel. Giving him the feeling of importance by meeting with you privately was worth the exchange.
He let out a breath between his teeth.
The hypocrisy of that bastard, pretending to care about the families only so much as what it gets him.
Yes, he is at least predictable in some things.
She got up from the bed and helped him on with the wraparound black silk shirt he wore.
You really are hoping to keep me in an even temper, assisting me with dressing and everything.
He let out a bark of laughter that only held a slightly grim note. She smiled.
Sometimes I like to remember that you are king and why I serve you. This is one of those times.
He paused in the process of pulling on his boots and gave her another speculative gaze. One of the rumored gifts of the Sphinx shifters was the ability to sometimes see the turning points of time, those moments that shifted the future onto one path or another. Was this one of those times?
In the mood for a gay fantasy romance series? You might like Cinders and Ashes, which is my high fantasy series loosely inspired by Cinderella, except that it's a 6-book series, so there's much more to it than a poor boy winning his Prince Charming. Here's the summary. Finn Ashton is cursed with ancient Fey blood. Once upon a time, to be a Fey was a blessing. But after the Fey murdered the human king and queen, now all who show Fey magic risk exile or death. Finn lives in hiding with his cruel stepfather and stepbrothers, who offer protection in exchange for Finn acting as a servant at his own estate. Prince Rohan is blessed with a crown, but must save his kingdom from ruin, his own lands languishing since the loss of Fey magic. A match with another human royal may be his people's salvation. But Rohan has always dreamed of marrying for love, like his parents. One day, battling monsters in the woods, Rohan stumbles upon a strange young commoner, Finn, who offers him something no royal ever can: true love. But will the secrets that Finn and Rohan keep from one another threaten the love they have, or even turn them into sworn enemies? Cinders and Ashes is a completed series in Kindle Unlimited and has audiobooks read by Edward Fox and Hannah Hart. The link to the series is in the notes.
Are you saying that this meeting is more critical than I know?
He asked carefully. Her eyes reflected the peerless blue sky outside.
I am saying that today you will need to be the king. That is all.
And with that inscrutable message, he sank his feet the rest of the way into his boots. He was dressed. They went downstairs to the first level of his chambers to meet with the wily old swarm shifter. He found the swarm shifter wandering about the main area of his quarters, hands behind back, mild expression on his elderly face as he looked at some of the ancient tapestries on the walls and the other objets d'art scattered throughout the room from a life of travelling the world. Marban wore a dun-coloured set of robes to make him seem priestly and serious, rather than the murderer and con artist he was. The very fact that he called those who worked for him granddaughter and grandson was to enforce the idea that he was a beneficent old man, everyone's grandfather. But he was only that, if everyone's grandfather was an evil old bastard. Simi was standing guard by the table. His dark gaze never left Marban. When he had become one with his snake spirit, people expected Simi to join one of the vast underground gangs that Marban controlled. But he hadn't. He'd come to be a part of the Claw, and now he was Valerius's personal favourite. Valerius knew that Simi hated Marban with a passion of 1,000 suns. His staff had already set out a pitcher of water and some fruit at the long table. Valerius wondered if he shouldn't just keep them standing so that this meeting was short. Marban did not deserve such niceties.
Marban, how Interesting to see you, Valerius said as he leaned against the back of a couch with his arms crossed loosely over his chest. Shioni stood to his side, looking demure, like she was just there to take notes or fetch something and not like the counselor that she was. She did this so that she became one with the furniture in the eyes of his guests. They would forget her. They would underestimate her, and that was exactly how she liked it. Marban took his sweet time turning around to face Valerius. It was made to seem like he was saying, "Oh, I didn't notice you. How did you get in here?"
"King Valerius,"
he said, and bowed only after an uncomfortable amount of time had passed, so that the gesture seemed rude rather than respectful.
"You are surprised to see me here? Perhaps all the news of dead humans has blocked from your mind the dead shifters from the below."
The mocking tone and attitude already had Valerius gritting his teeth. The fact that part of him had forgotten those who had died in the ill-fated fight with Caden and Iolair made the mockery worse.
"I have not forgotten. Shioni, we have reached out to all the families, have we not?"
he asked.
Yes, and private meetings with each of them have been extended,
she said.
"You've extended your hand, but they haven't extended theirs back. They've authorized me to represent them."
Marban's head lowered, and he put a hand on his chest as if so touched by their faith in him that it required the clenched hand and bowed head.
"Perhaps it was because they know if you don't get something for their losses, that you will make their lives even more miserable than they already are," Valerius remarked dryly.
Any family that failed to give obeisance to Marban in the below soon was in the direst of straits.
"I am here for no base coin."
Marban's head jerked up, as if his pride smote him a mighty blow.
"I am here for justice." "Do not waste either of our time, Marban, by pretending to be virtuous or a defender of the poor and downtrodden. You are here solely for yourself. That is your nature, and we both know it."
Valerius snapped with disgust.
"Why don't you tell me what you want, and I will make sure the families are compensated fairly. That is how this always works, doesn't it? I have a busy day."
Marban's dark eyes narrowed at him. He'd hit a nerve. Even now, Valerius would not treat him with the respect he thought he was entitled. For an intelligent man like Marban, it undoubtedly did sting to not be respected, to have what he was overshine who he could be. Marban went over to the table, where the water and fruit was laid out. He was about to sit at the head seat when Simi placed himself between Marban and the chair. Simi didn't say anything, but his very presence, blocking Marban's way, said a million things. Marban gave Simi a smile.
"It's so good to see you, Captain. There are so few of us in the below that get to better our lot in life. You are one of those fine few. I would so wish, though, that you spend more of your time in the below helping the residents rather than policing them."
Simi's jaw muscles worked before he said through gritted teeth, "The greatest good I could do for the people of the below is to eliminate the criminal element that keeps them in perpetual poverty and distress."
"You think the criminals do that, and not the very system of government?"
Marban actually looked like he was considering that argument as he took the chair to the right of the head chair.
"I don't really care what you think, Marban,"
Simi said. Valerius slowly took his place at the head of the table, even though he would have rather kept this a standing-only meeting. But Marban was undoubtedly not here just about those dead shifters, but about Caden too. This might take longer than he wanted. It undoubtedly would, but he wondered what he would have to give to keep Caden safe, at least for another day more. Shioni sat on the other side of him. Simi pulled back her chair. She smiled at him and gave him silent thanks.
"You've asked me what I want, but I would think it is pretty obvious."
Marban folded his arms on the table in front of him.
"Which is?"
Valerius was not going to guess.
Marban thumped 2 fingers against the table's dark surface.
A place here.
A place at my dining table? Valerius's eyebrows arched.
Don't play the idiot.
Marban's voice was sharp. Simi opened his mouth to take Marban to task for his insulting words, but Valerius put up a hand to silence him. You want a place at the table of power, yes? Valerius asked, but it was really a statement as he knew what Marban had always wanted. Marban smiled genially, his temper seemingly restored.
Yes, I do. I think I have earned it far more than others who have your ear.
Who else has my ear? Valerius asked.
The heads of the other clans. I know that you—
No, Valerius said simply. Marban blinked in confusion.
But you—
I listen to no one's counsel, except for Shionis. People come to me just as you come, with your suggestions and desires and problems. But no one makes the decision but me, he answered. Marban's confusion grew, and Valerius realized that he really didn't know the truth of it. Shioni was constantly reminding him that he should take others into his confidence, that he should have some kind of formal Shifters Advisory Council, but he had ignored her. Do you have a council, Marban? Valerius asked.
Of course,
the old swarm shifter said.
I make the final decisions, but the head of the clans of the below have a seat on it.
Shioni gave him a look as if to say,
See, even Marban has a council.
And then he saw a way to deal with everything that was happening. The dragon shifters coming, the unrest in the below, and Caden. This might keep Caden safe, and that mattered. Marban, you are smart, cunning, and ruthless, Valerius said almost kindly, which had Shioni staring and Marban blinking again.
I suppose in certain lights
Oh, no, you are all of those things. And I think I should take advantage of that. Valerius crossed one leg over the other as he turned towards Marban.
You take advantage of me,
Marban tittered. Simi looked stricken. But again Valerius raised a hand, not that Simi was going to object. He wouldn't. That was not his place, but Valerius wanted him to know that his concerns were understood. His hatred of this man was understood. You want respectability. You want it so badly that I bet you can practically taste it in the air, Valerius said. Marban's smile went a little rigid. And I'm the only way you can get that, Valerius said. Marban rolled his lips as if to speak, but Valerius did not let him do so. I am going to start a council, Marban, and you are going to be on it. A council of shifters, the most powerful shifters of each of our kind, not just from my territory, though most are here, but from the world, Valerius explained. You are going to be on the ground floor of this. You are going to assist Shioni in setting it up. You will be responsible for reaching out with her to get the more recalcitrant parties to pick someone to be a part of it. Marban seemed not to be breathing. His eyes were fixed on Valerius's face. He was waiting for the catch, but he clearly knew that this was the ultimate power for which he sought. It was a way out of the below. Shioni looked stunned as well, but her surprise soon turned to pleasure. This was what she had wanted him to do for ages, to be a part of the world, yet not take everything upon his shoulders.
What is the, price of being a part of this council?
Marban asked. You already know, Valerius said.
I'll handle the families from the below, of course. It will be clear that this was a terrible accident and that you should not be blamed.
Marban began after a moment's hesitation. There will be compensation for them, but more importantly, to all of the below, Valerius said. It will be divided up properly. Marban spread his hands.
Of course. It's for the good of the people, not just those who are strong. You will ensure that happens, Marban. You will be held responsible for it, because that is the rub about respectability. You actually have to act respectfully to get it, Valerius said. Marban only nodded. And there is one more matter, Valerius said. The most important matter.
Young Caden, yes.
Marban said with an almost genuine smile.
He and my Rose are becoming quite fast friends. Did you know that she is going to dinner at his home this evening? She was fussing over what to wear and what to bring. She's never been asked to dinner before.
She's a nice person. I'm sure she'll be asked again, Valerius said softly.
Yes, for certain,
Marban nodded.
But I assume you are talking about Caden's identity as the White Dragon Shifter. So long as I am on this council of yours and not in some name-only position, his secret is safe with me.
Valerius smiled at him. Not a nice smile. And even Marban looked a little afraid. That's good, Marban. For if anyone learns of who he is through you or yours, I will break you. Silence fell. I will destroy you and everything you have. I will make it so that you are not even a memory. A single drop of sweat coursed down Marban's temple.
I am your and Caden's friend. I won't let anyone find out about the boy. I swear it.
Valerius smiled again. Good. It seems we understand each other.
Do you know just one person who might like this audio story? Share it with them. Non-mainstream content like this doesn't get recommended by YouTube or Spotify because there's not much to compare it to. Therefore, nobody just discovers us. Our entire audience comes from either ads or your recommendations, so it really helps us out when you send someone our way.